hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel.
Peace, family. This is your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. Welcome to Night School. Every night here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel, we hold Night School, where we break down the most controversial subjects, the most interesting topics, the most engaged debates in the world today. And tonight is no different. A lot going on in the world. Before we get to the serious, heavy subjects, I got to say, I was just in New York City in front of the Madison Square Garden. Nothing's happening there in terms of a game. However, New York fans are outside. They just beat the Boston Celtics by one. It was 91-90 after being down. And I was talking crazy at halftime. So they beat the Celtics up 2-0. They won 2 road games. It'll be interesting to see what happens next. The Knicks are in control of the series. I was hoping that when the Knicks play the Celtics, for me as a Sixers fan, the ideal situation is that nobody wins. That both teams get eliminated for cheating or something. I don't know. They institute the first tie in basketball history. I hate the Celtics as a Philadelphian. I'm not allowed to like the Celtics. The Knicks, it's more of just a divisional rivalry. I don't hate the Knicks. I just don't like the Knicks. What I really don't like is the smug Knick fan. Knicks fans are so smug. They're so obnoxious. They're so annoying. And so in the ideal world, I never have to choose between the Celtics and the Knicks. Now, there are times in baseball where the Yankees play the Mets. They got similar situations. I hate the Mets. I'd rather the Yankees win than the Mets, but I really would rather neither team be in that mix. It's that kind of thing. Anyway, I'm going to have to spend more time around New York fans, all of whom are terrible people. If you're a Knicks fan, you're probably a terrible person. If you're an active Knicks fan, because you guys are really quiet when you lose. And, OD Lisa Hollingsworth, Lisa Hollingsworth is the right word. They are OD. So I can't really deal with them. I don't want to have to deal with them. So let's just hope this thing ends soon. I'd love to see Golden State win the championship. They're my dark horse. Don't forget I said that. I still think they got a shot at winning this thing. If everybody stays healthy, I'd love to see Golden State and Denver in the Western Final. And I want Golden State to emerge out of that, but I love Jokic, so either one of them works for me. I don't think OKC got the stuff, even though they're kicking ass tonight. Cleveland, I just don't believe in. Indiana, there are teams that this year have played well that I just said I don't believe in. And so, again, we'll see. I don't want to make this a whole basketball thing, but I don't talk about basketball much on here for obvious reasons. That's not what y'all come here for. But I'm excited that the playoffs are here, and this has been a good, maybe even great NBA playoffs so far. Cavs Pacers should be interesting. Indiana looks like, again, they're in control. Although, again, I think Indiana is a deeper and better team, but the Cavs I had no seed for a reason. The Knicks come out. If it ends up being Pacers Knicks, it's like what year is this? And if it ends up being OKC versus the Warriors, I could live with that. I'd rather it be Denver versus the Warriors, and and then I don't care who comes out. Ultimately, as long as the Knicks don't win a championship, my life is complete. That's all I'm gonna say about that. All right, y'all. A lot of topics going on today. A lot of things happening. Y'all know earlier today I appeared live to talk about my appearance on Piers Morgan. If you missed it, check out the channel. You'll see me live this morning talking about this moment on the Piers Morgan show where this woman outed herself. It didn't take any work. She just basically said, yes, I'm a white supremacist. She outed herself as a white supremacist, as a racist. She says she uses the N-word. And at the end of the show, Piers Morgan invites her to use the N-word. Piers literally says, hey, well, if you're a racist, say the N-word now. Say it right now. And I'm like, what are we doing here? Why would you want to say the N-word right now? Why would you want her to say the N-word right now? Prove she's racist? She already said I say the N-word. What else you want? And as the only actual Black American up there, I'm sitting there like, come on, boss. We're not going to do this. I can't allow this to happen. So anyway, I break down the whole story. I tell my side of it, and it's all on earlier posts that hopefully y'all check out on the channel. I'm trying to do more daytime posting. I want to get back to where we were maybe like a year ago. Remember, make it like it was. We would go and we have daytime conversations, daytime posts. We would have updates. And I know some of y'all really want the God's updates, and we're going to get back to those as well. So we will do that. Obviously, we can't do it every day. It's a bandwidth issue. But I'm absolutely committed to continuing to cover guys as we have. I mean, you saw that just yesterday when we talked about what's going on in Israel. So let's do it, man. Let's get more content, more conversation. And if there's something you like more of, let me know. I know for a fact you all are missing the classroom in the cell, so I'm gonna start posting those clips again because I have so many episodes that need to go up. And Mumia continues to call. We continue to talk. We continue to build. We're working on another project that I think y'all will be excited about. So let's get to it as well. But tonight we got some important news. This is a story that I hate talking about, but I feel compelled to talk about, that we need to talk about, and that I am committed to talking about. And that is the story of Tyre Nichols. 3 of the ex-cops who beat Tyre Nichols to death at a traffic stop just walked free on murder charges. But they still got to face the feds for now. If you don't remember this story, because there's been a lot. Sadly, these kinds of stories happen way too often. But this was a particular story that I think you all might remember. Tyre Nichols was a 29-year-old Black man who was pulled over, dragged out of his car, and beaten so badly that he died 3 days later. Now, the autopsy, quite appropriately, I would argue, called this a homicide. Now, look at these guys. These are the officers that did it. Tadarius Bean, Justin Smith, Demetrius Haley, Desmond Mills Jr., and Emmett Martin. Yes, all Black cops. We'll talk about that in a minute. A Tennessee jury just found former Memphis officers, Smith, Bean, and Haley, not guilty of second-degree murder and kidnapping. Even after we watched, literally all of America watched the video of Nichols being stomped out like a dog in the street. The feds already convicted them of obstruction charges last year, and their sentencing for that is set for June. So while the state let them slide on the big charges, Uncle Sam still got something to say. 2 other former officers, that's Emmett Martin and Desmond Mills, already flipped. They snitched. They took pleas and they testified. Now, Mills's deal is locked in, but Emmett Martin is still waiting to see what he gets. With this administration, who fucking knows? He may end up the head of the National Police Misconduct Oversight Committee. You know what I'm saying? Like this, everything's topsy-turvy, upside down in this moment. I remember still doing cable news at the time, and I remember anchoring the coverage of the story, reporting it several nights. And this was so disturbing, so scary, so disgusting what they did to Tyre Nichols. And there was enough evidence to make it very clear that these officers were guilty. And the autopsy, the physical evidence, the medical evidence all suggested guilty. And yet, here we are. Why does this happen? How does this happen? In this country, we have there's 2 things happening. One is, of course, we have a certain kind of understanding of Black life just not being worth that much. There's also a presumption that Black bodies are inherently and irreversibly dangerous. So whether you're Rodney King being beaten by LA cops, or whether you're Tyre Nichols being dragged to death by, you know, Memphis police officers. Doesn't matter how many cops there are. Doesn't matter how innocent you are. It doesn't matter how non-threatening you are. It doesn't matter how unarmed you are. You're still seen as violent and dangerous. And so when that juror gets in that seat and evaluates the crime, even when they see that you were unarmed, and even when they look at the dashboard camera, or even when they look at the videotape in the case of Rodney King, they say, yeah, but if I was a police officer, I might have done the same thing. And so they invoke the reasonable man standard, which unfortunately is used often to codify irrational white supremacist fears about black people, right? The juror looks at George Zimmerman and say, yeah, I probably been scared of Trayvon too. They look at Darren Wilson and say, yeah, I probably would have shot Mike Brown too. Accepting all the facts of the case, but still saying this is what I would have done in that person's shoes. And that gets compounded by the fact that not only is there the race angle, but there's the officer angle. Jurors are often asked not to ask what a reasonable person would do, but what a reasonable police officer would do. That's the legal standard in many places, in many contexts, but also in everyday speech, we say, oh, police have a tough job. Oh, police have to make split-second decisions. Oh, police have to decide whether someone's armed or unarmed in a split second. And so they make mistakes. And I say, you know what? Police do have to make very high-stakes decisions in very short amounts of time. That's why I wouldn't be a cop. One of the many reasons. That's why they shouldn't be cops. If the job is so difficult and dangerous and high stakes that you end up shooting people who didn't do it, who didn't deserve it, who were unarmed, etc., then you shouldn't be a cop. In this country, too often it's one thing to say we give police the benefit of the doubt. Everyone deserves the benefit of the doubt. But there are moments where there is no doubt. And yet we still continue to exonerate killer cops. And people say, see, Mark, this has nothing to do with race. The police officers are black. So all this talk about black people and dangerous black men, the cops are black, Mark. That's true. But guess what? Some of the biggest purveyors of white supremacy appear in black bodies. And many police officers, including black ones, have deep-seated hatred or deep-seated fear or deep-seated anxiety or deep-seated distrust of blackness and black people. And the anti-blackness and the racism that shapes American policing doesn't skip over black people. Now, I'm not saying every black cop is the same. Just like every white cop ain't the same. I've met plenty of cops that ain't trying to do no harm. Most cops I know just want to come home. Most cops I know just don't want no trouble. Everybody just be cool. Don't start no one beating up. That's true. The issue isn't individual cops any more than the issue of education's individual teachers, right? We all know great teachers. Doesn't mean that the schooling system isn't corrupt and incapable of producing good outcomes or fair outcomes. Similarly, police, some great cops. There's some great cops in the world in terms of interpersonally, in terms of their lives, in terms of their social engagements, in terms of their private engagements, in terms of their charitable and philanthropic work, in terms of their faith, in terms of their parent, whatever. They could be great people, but they are part of a system that produces extraordinary amounts of harm in the service of protecting the property and the capital of the bourgeois. And so I don't give a damn that these officers are black and not white. That doesn't make me feel any better. If I'm Tyre Nichols' loved one, I don't feel better that he was killed by black cops. Dr. King didn't march so we could get beaten and shot by black police officers, and that they would be exonerated by a black mayor. Like that's not it's progress. That's not justice. That's not what we're here for. So all I can say is we got a long way to go. It'll be interesting to see what the feds do, but it wouldn't shock me if everybody here gets a much greater slap on the wrist than their actions would warrant. And I'm using this very careful language because I'm an abolitionist. At the end of the day, I don't want this to be the solution to most of our problems, and certainly not all of our problems, right? I'm not convinced that we can let me say it differently. I don't know how, and I've been writing all day about abolition and thinking through this stuff, but I don't know how to do. I don't know what to deal with this. How to deal with this. I mean, like, what do you do when you got 5 Black people policing a Black community and they kill a Black person who didn't deserve any of it? Can we arrest our way out of that problem? Doesn't look like it. Could we prosecute our way out of that problem? It doesn't seem like it. But we got to figure something out, because this, what we doing right here, this ain't it. All right, y'all, let's move on to another story. Of course, Diddy continues to be the story of the week. Let me tell you something. This Diddy trial is so messy. Mark Geragos, who many of you know, one of the loudest voices out there defending Diddy, just got checked by the judge for getting a little reckless on his podcast. In federal court, Judge Arun Subramanian went off on Geragos after he called the prosecution team, which is made up of 6 white women, a 6-pack of white women. Now, he said that on his show. The judge said that it was, quote, outrageous and, quote, would not be tolerated anywhere in the country. Now, what's interesting is Mark Geragos isn't actually on Diddy's legal team, at least not officially, but he's definitely moving like he is. And he responded by saying his comments were just, quote, an observation. He says that Diddy, his client, a Black man, feels targeted. Now, this is where it gets interesting. I'll say a little bit more and then I'll break it down for you. Diddy's, of course, facing major federal charges. So sex trafficking, racketeering, and moving women across state lines for prostitution. And now, one of the defense's biggest legal names is stirring the pot in the media. And the thing is, Geragos is doing this while jury selection is still going on. The prosecution team wrote a letter, because they was tight when they heard the Geragos podcast, and they said that this podcast, which has millions of listeners, shout out to him, I wish I had millions of listeners, could mess up the jury pool, and it could stop Diddy from getting a fair trial, because I'm sure the prosecution cares about Diddy getting a fair trial. Meanwhile, the judge says he is watching everything that Geragos does from now on. The judge said, literally, I'm tuning into your podcast. So a couple of things. One, Mark Geragos just got a bunch of free publicity for his podcast. If he got 1 million viewers, he might have 1.5 million now. I don't know, but it sounds like he up. Second, and this is really first in a certain kind of way, I'm going to struggle to talk and analyze this Diddy trial. I believe profoundly in the right to due process. I believe profoundly the right to a zealous defense. I believe that we have to ensure that every defendant that walks in a courtroom is treated with the appropriate level of legal protection, care, constitutional covering, etc. I also am profoundly disgusted and disturbed by what we've heard about Diddy over the last 2.5 years. I'm also profoundly disturbed and disgusted by what I know about Diddy before the last 1.5 years. And I'm also profoundly disturbed by what I'm hearing behind the scenes about what I'm hearing about Diddy over the course of the last 30 years, 35 years. And so I want him to be assessed based on the merits of the case that get brought against him. I don't want to see the prosecution cheat. I don't want to see anybody get railroaded. I don't want to see, I suspect, and I don't know, So this is not me making an allegation. Let me be very clear. I have no doubt that Diddy did a whole bunch of the stuff he's accused of doing. And I have no doubt that some of it he didn't do, or some of it is exaggerated or misrepresented. But there's enough mess in there, there's enough guilt in there that I don't feel much sympathy for Diddy in his prosecution. And so the part of me that wants to make sure that his rights are protected is sort of at odds and in tension with the person who says, yeah, but he's a monster. He does monstrous shit. And we got to figure out a solution. He needs to be held accountable. Again, as an abolitionist, this isn't my ideal model of accountability, but I'm talking about this in the context of this trial. Somebody said Trump might pardon him. He might. I mean, if you would have said to me, Diddy might get a pardon from the president at any other moment in history, I would say there's no way a president is pardoning a rap mogul convicted of sex-related charges in the early years of his presidency, of his term, of this administration. I mean, we got 5 months in, if that. February, March, April, 3 months and 2 weeks. So I don't know how to make sense of it. Wouldn't shock me if Trump did this for Diddy. Adrian said that's a weird allyship. Trump and Diddy, what's in it? First of all, Trump and Diddy go way back. They go back decades. So it's not nearly as far-fetched as you might think. The what's in it for Trump part, I don't know the answer to that. That doesn't mean there isn't anything in it for him, though. I don't know what the answer is, but that doesn't mean there's not one. That's the point. The powerful get shit done. But anyway, I don't know how to make sense of this Diddy trial. But I can tell you what Mark Geragos said was that the prosecution team was made up of 6 white women. I'm not sure that observation rises to the level of meriting any kind of censure or reprimand from the judge. Now, I'm not saying that just pointing out someone's race can't be provocative, can't be seen as a provocation. At times it is. The obvious rejoinder is, what if a white person said, there's a 6-pack of blacks over there? Sure. But we know black and white are not opposite sides of the same coin. You can't just reverse things like that because, whiteness signifies something very different. Same argument I had on Piers Morgan the other night. White power is not the opposite of black power. Black power is not just the opposite, the black version of white power. These very different projects, very different moral commitments, very different assumptions about the world. One is a humanistic practice and project, and the other is not. But anyway, if Diddy feels like he's being racially railroaded, and that's part of his defense, and it seems like it is a little bit, he's made some racial arguments, then saying that these are white women doesn't seem. And a 6-pack, I mean, maybe the 6-pack is seen as sexist or degrading. Yeah, I would need to hear the context of the answer, but pointing out that a bunch of white people are trying to prosecute a black person, to me, seems like with the inbounds defense. Now, let me be clear, because I don't want any confusion. I don't think Diddy is being racially railroaded. Do I think there's a racial dimension to this? Of course, there's always a racial dimension. But I think Diddy's guilty. And I think we need to be honest about that. I think Diddy's guilty. But people have a right to mount a defense. And if that's his defense, and it's not a far-fetched one. I mean, he also had a critique of the state's use of the Mann Act, which has often been used to, again, prosecute and criminalize. I'll just say, his team is making some arguments. It wasn't the most compelling argument. I didn't buy it. But it's inbounds. And if it's inbounds, don't you judge now tell me that I, Mark Geragos, can't say anything else about their whiteness. Now, again, if he's saying it's a flippant comment, if it's the way he said it, I'd have to hear more context. But at the very least, it's a conversation worth having. But in the meantime, Mark Geragos, enjoy them extra views, enjoy them extra hits. We got you. Not me. Actually, no, we don't. Let me not say we got you. That's going to sound like I'm showing solidarity. I see you. I see what you're doing is what I mean when I say we got you. We see what you're doing. We understand what you're doing. And it'll be interesting to see what comes of it. That's all I got to say. I got a question coming in. Or, I'll get to that in a moment. But if you have a question or a super chat or a super sticker, drop it in. But if you have an observation, a question, or a comment, we will read it live if you drop it in as a super chat. So please consider doing it. As long as it's not offensive, I will read it. And if it's a question, I will answer it. All right. All right, family. We got one more story before we go that I want to make sure we talk about. Again, it's your boy Trump. This story that I'm about to talk about is quite serious. Two major nuclear powers might be sliding into a war. And the only thing worse than two nuclear powers sliding into a war is Donald Trump getting in the middle of it. And that's exactly what's happening right now. Here's some visual aids here for you geographically challenged people. We're talking about India and Pakistan, and they're teetering on war over these Kashmir jets. Let me zoom in for you a little bit more just so y'all got it, just so y'all can see what's happening here. So after India dropped bombs in Kashmir, which is controlled by Pakistan, Pakistan says it's now ready to clap back. The Prime Minister, Shehbaz Sharif, says that a response to India is absolutely coming. The only question is, how hard will this response be? Pakistan claims they already shot down 5 Indian fighter jets, including 3 French Rafales. Now, if that's true, they could just say, look, we won. Well, let's keep it pushing. But some people, myself included, think that Pakistan's army chief is going to take it a step further. Now, if you don't know Pakistan's current army chief, he's a lot more aggressive, let's just say, than the previous one. Now, India's desire to go further, Pakistan's desire to go further than that, not just chalking it as a win, is partly because India's bombs didn't just hit them, they hit Punjab province, which is an extremely busy and both commercially and politically important site. Still, Pakistan has to think about some other factors. If Pakistan retaliates too much, if they go too far in their response, then India is going to do what? Strike again. And then you get the cycle. So the word is they're probably going to hit back, but they might hit back light. Just enough to say, look, we're not weak. We're not going to do nothing, but we also don't want World War III. Meanwhile, your boy Donald Trump is back in D.C. in the Oval Office, talking about, I get along with both sides. First of all, why do you have to say anything? Second, saying I get along with both sides is something that only works in South Asia. You know what I'm saying? Like he couldn't say, well, I'm fine with the Houthis. He wouldn't say, oh, Israel, Palestine, I'm rocking with both. He wouldn't do these things. Now, part of why it's convenient for him to say I get along with both sides is because Trump doesn't know the area. He doesn't know the region. He's not informed on the subject. And so this allows him to not say anything that requires any thought or critical reflection because he didn't have any. But it's also, his comment reflects a certain kind of confusion about what America's role in all this is and what America's role in all this should be. Trump says the beef is, quote, terrible. Thanks. But he also says he wants to help squash it. Now, what that means, that's between him and his God. I have no idea what Donald Trump means by that. But we do know that Lil Marco, which is what Donald Trump used to call Secretary of State Marco Rubio, He's already made calls to both countries. He's already reached out. Seems like he's trying to play some kind of mediator role, but it's not clear exactly what the mediator role looks like in this context. Now, here's what I know. Both countries have nuclear weapons. Both countries have real armies. And both countries have long memories. So we need to be mindful that if this thing pops off, it's not going to be a local or regional war. It could escalate. It literally could become World War III. I don't think that's what would happen, but it's not an impossibility. It's not far-fetched by any stretch. So, but also with India in the mix, unlike other times where when Donald Trump intervenes on Israel-Palestine, he can kind of put his thumb on the scale. Palestinians have been dispossessed and stolen because of the settler colonial apartheid state. Israel is a client state of the United States. So the United States can exact a lot of pressure. They can put their thumb on the scale in order to create certain kinds of outcomes. That's a lot harder to do. I mean, a lot harder to do when they don't kind of need you. Like India doesn't need you. The basic nations don't need you. So it becomes a very different enterprise when you're trying to think about what to do about all this. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. And I am not an expert on this. I will tell you this, onto a new topic. Everybody's asking me about Burkina Faso and Traore. And so I'm going to bring an expert on to help me break this thing down so I can speak with some intelligence and insight. I told you the other day I didn't know much. Somebody said to go check out Amanda Seals' channel. Amanda happened to call me 5 minutes later. It's like spooky. And I told her that. And she told me how important it was to keep that momentum going. I'm so grateful for Amanda's page and Amanda's YouTube channel and Amanda's Patreon and all the things. And hopefully we can stand on that and help build something together. Not just me and Amanda, but all of us, you who I'm talking to at home about this. We can crowdsource the information, you know what I'm saying, and wiki it, not in the new school way where people just make shit up and put it in a document and it's real because it's on a meme. But let's actually bring forward some experts. If y'all know somebody who's an expert on Burkina Faso and the particular status of the interim president and the roots of the tensions and the victories and the losses, all of that, let me know. I would love to do a whole episode on Burkina Faso. It seems necessary. I just don't know enough to do it myself. And I don't believe in arguing or debating or teaching or explicating something that I haven't mastered or I come close to mastering. So please, if y'all know something about the topic, come on in. Or if you know somebody who's an expert, beg them to respond. You know what I'm saying? All right. Rocky, so you got too much class to be conversing with Myron Gaines. He's a bozo. Look, I don't know what I would have said if I'd gotten a call saying, "Hey, we need you on Piers Morgan today. You're going to be talking to Myron Gaines about racism." I'd be like, "It's not my bag." But I was invited to talk. I was told one person with whom I was going to be speaking, and it was the woman who, I believe, the woman who's sort of on my side and who was disgusted and outraged at the lack of collective empathy for the 5-year-old special needs child who was called the N-word by this white woman. I mean, what are we talking about here? This is insane. You can't make this up. And so once you're on set, or in this case it was virtual, it was right here. Once you're on set, ain't nothing to do but just do it. You can either walk off set when you see who's on there. Never let them see you sweat. I could quit. Or I could go prepare to go to war for the next 45, 55 minutes. And that's what I did. And I think I got some good licks in, some good counter punches, etc. But Allahu Alam, like it ain't up to for me to decide. But I didn't decide to be conversing with Myron Gaines. I decided to be in a conversation that Myron Gaines happened to be in as well, unbeknownst to me. So I agree that he's a bozo, and I agree that I don't need to be conversing with him. I agree with you on those counts, but I know the question itself sort of is like a thing of like implicitly like, why would you do that? Or don't do that no more. And some people in the comments have literally said, why did you do it? And that's the answer, y'all. I had no idea. Why was that? Zane Khan said, you did great with Matt Walsh. I didn't know Matt Walsh brought me up. So salute to him, I guess. I can't wait. Send me a link or tell me where Matt Walsh said something. For those who don't know, Matt Walsh is a right winger who I would imagine has disagreed with me 99% of the time in my public life. So I use a little love from the right, but not in that Black Republican male way, you know, when they come up with white women. I mean, just like a good job. I attaboy, not at-boy, at a man. I don't know. You get my point. Derek W., shout out to you. Thank you for becoming a channel member. Derek, Darnell Bolton. I didn't forget, but I've been a little overwhelmed. But let's check in. I would love to support you. And if you want to do something tonight, we can do an interview tonight. That way we won't forget anything. Just shoot me a note. Rocky, welcome to the channel. It's so good to have you on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Good to see you with the MLH chain around your neck, just like Theo Walker, who's also joining the community. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Your joining makes everything easier for everybody here. It's what we do. All right, y'all. I think that was it. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. And I'll see you tomorrow. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and if you're so inclined, hit the join button and become a monthly paid subscriber to the channel. If you don't see it on your phone, go to the app or go in the description. There's a link there to join the channel to become a member for as low as $3.99. It's not expensive. It just gives us the financial stability that we can do the work that needs to be done and not the work that we want to do to pay the bills. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. If you don't want to drop something in our coffers, I like that word, coffers, on a month-to-month basis, make a one-time payment. No extensions, no renewals. Just go to Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle and drop something in. If you give $1, we're grateful. If you give $1 million, we're grateful. We're just grateful people. And no amount is too big. No amount is too small. Please give with your heart and understand that your money is an investment toward building Black media, radical media, grassroots media. And we can't do that without your support. So please, 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 I'll let you, boy. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.